Hello, this is the Explorations Assignment 5 Experimental Paragraph Indicators, and we are adding 7 new pages, and I'm going to just walk through each of them quickly to show you a couple of tips. The first one we're starting with is a leading change. Make sure you update your information at the top bar and in your colophon to reflect what you're doing. And so for the leading change, you're just going to alternate paragraphs and change the leading. So I already have everything set up, and I'll just show it to you going from a 9/12 to a 9/16. So right now everything is set up as a 9/12. And so all you need to do is just alternate paragraphs and update. Though when you do that, it does cause a little problem. The last line has a bigger line of leading, and then the line below it does not. So it almost appears like this last line of this paragraph belongs to this paragraph, which we don't want. So instead of just selecting the paragraph, it is best to select the paragraph plus the first line, so that leading is applied in between the space between the paragraphs. And that is going to help show us the section between them so we can actually see the paragraph, which is the point of this. So that's pretty simple. That's leading. It's all done in one block. If you have multiple columns, that's fine. Just select every other paragraph and make sure you reflect the change in the colophon. The next one is almost the same. It's tracking. So I have a secondary indicator in here because the tracking change I'm going to make is just not going to be enough. So I already set up the space between, and I'm going to select all of the copy, and right now it just has a tracking of 0, so that's the baseline I'm starting with, and I'm going to add 70 every other paragraph. And so like I said, this change isn't big enough, and it definitely needed a little bit more, so I added that space between. And obviously when you're changing the tracking like this, there's going to be some other issues that you'll have to fix. So just go ahead and double check everything, look for widows, orphans, make sure there's 3 lines of a paragraph together, and that your space between is set up correctly if that's what you're using. And it is kind of nice in this to go a little bit more dramatic. So 70 is quite a lot for tracking. And yeah, maybe it needs a little bit more like 90. So definitely play with how much you have. You are breaking rules in this Exploration Assignment 5. So make sure you know the rules first so that when you break them, you're really mindful of other details like how the rag looks and then any widows that might pop up or any funny things that are in your type. And you can fix those depending on what your settings are. All right, the next one is a margin change. So still set up mostly the same way, except for this time you'll just select the paragraph that you want to affect. In this case, I guess just do every other. And go up here to your paragraph controls. And we're going to go back up here to this push the whole thing over. If you remember, we did this left indent push over when we did our extent. We pushed it all over, and then we went negative and pulled the first line out. For a margin change, you just can use this top one and push it over however much you want. And the whole point of it is to just upset the flow so we can see this new paragraph. And there's really no general rules for this. You can do whatever you want and adjust it however you want. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. One other thing that I did with this paragraph already is I adjusted the right indent as well. So the second one here had the left and this one has the right. And I think I might actually do both. So it's really going to make it a little bit more narrow. But like I said, you can kind of play with whatever you want to do and shift in or out as long as we can see where the new paragraphs are. If you decide you want to add another indicator in here, absolutely do that. Explore different opportunities and then take a look and see what you're doing to make sure you're not making a mess. So that's margin change. All right, column width is pretty simple, but you do need to use separate type blocks to get the column width. And then you just literally drag it wider or narrow and position it where you want it. Double check that you're aligning baselines. So this one has 2 lines over the first 2 paragraphs, but the baseline is still aligned. So that's going to just require you to drag a grid line down or make sure you're doing a baseline align. And you can do whatever you want in here as well. So I've decided to do a flush right, a center, a flush left, and another flush right, and pair up the rags and have some justified type in the middle so that I could get this hard edge. So whatever you want to do and whatever you want to mix up with this, go ahead and just show the paragraphs changing by the column width. Obviously in this one I have three paragraphs together in this one column, and they all share the same width. So I had to add a secondary indicator with a space between. Don't forget to update your colophon and your information at the top. So this next one, interlock, this is already set up as well, but I'll just show you how it's made. This is 3 text blocks. So this first text block has 9/21. So the leading is huge. And if we didn't have that much, let's see, I might normally do like a 13 just to have some decent leading. That is going to be really hard to interlock other type with because you can see in here how tight it's getting, and it's just not enough. So opening it up really, really loose is going to give you enough space to interlock the type. And you can see in here that the type is still somewhat close line to line, but I don't have too much of an overlap. And you can play with the different types of overlap. It can just be a small amount just to get a little bit of a texture. You can change the color of both of these. This one's gray because it's the footer, but you can do something different. And it is helpful to have it offset a line. So if you want us to read this first, it's helpful to have it show up above this paragraph, a line or even 2. That's up to you. So experiment with how that's working and make sure it's clear to us that we don't read this line and then jump down to this line, that we know we're supposed to go here. And I think some people might have a quick hang up with that, but for the most part, if it's set up well, it should be easy enough to follow and read. If you have to number anything, number your paragraphs, go ahead. And then you're going to have some other sort of paragraph indicator if you only have a couple columns. So if you want, you can set it up paragraph by paragraph and interlock it however you want. I chose to just do 2 columns and then use the graphic element as my paragraph indicator because I didn't have as much space on the page to do the other idea I had. And if you are trying to play with a specific idea and you run out of space, it's okay to delete the last couple of paragraphs in the main type. The next one is overlap. This is already set up as well, but I'll just show you how it's structured. Different text blocks. Some of them are pretty simple. Like this is a simple text block and the type just ends here, so I just stuck this next one right next to it, baselined, aligned it, and gave it what would be a decent amount of space between the period and the new paragraph so that there was a little bit of an extra gap. This paragraph number 3 is set up as an extent, and then I just go ahead and used this wrap around bounding box button up here to give that bounding box the edge for this shape in this paragraph. And that is how I got that gap in here. This one is just, this gap is here because I just moved the text block. This is a different text block. I am getting a lot of rivers in this type, so I'm not totally happy with this, but it does show you an example of lots of different things you can do with overlap. Play with the shapes, indents, extents, lining up baselines, changing colors, and if it feels a little confusing to read, go ahead and number your paragraphs, or you can even literally draw a line, and you can make it a little playful. Again, explore and do whatever you want. Just don't forget about the original rules from Explorations 1 through 4 so that whatever you're doing in here, you're not making a mess. And you're being mindful of these gaps and what the spacing is that you're leaving. So they're tight on purpose and loose on purpose for different reasons. The last one is a direction change. So same thing, you're breaking some rules in here where you have lots of text blocks. Now, normally we wouldn't want to have 3 different text blocks just for the header. But in this case, I needed it so that I can rotate. And you could just do a simple rotate in the rotate tool up here and put it in, 90 or 100 degrees or whatever you want. And play with how that's locking up. So this is creating different textures, different shapes. I hate mine. but it's off to a start, I guess. And yeah, look at what you're left with and then see where you want to adjust from there. This is a little bit more challenging to follow because it's changing direction, so it's really easy for people to lose their place. And that is what I think is one of the biggest challenge for me with this one is where to position the paragraphs so that they can flow easily without people getting totally lost. And also having a decent negative space and shape that you're creating with all of the direction changes. So I look forward to seeing what you all do for these. And it might be that you make a few and tinker with it a bit and then go back and refine. So definitely give yourself the time to play, walk away, and then come back and refine and look for any errors like 2-letter hyphenations, any space between set up incorrectly. Make sure you've updated all of your content and you're paying attention to all the fine typesetting details, especially when you're doing stuff that allows you to break the rules a little bit. So I want you to get experience with how hard it is to break the rules and see how far you can push these before you make a mess, and then what you need to do to go back and make sure that we can navigate and read this. And also keep in mind that this type is, I don't want to say it's boring, but it's not really talking about anything too dramatic. So the concept that you might inject with some of these explorations might go more wild with other type, and this should still highlight beautiful fine typesetting just with a little bit more visual interest. So it's great to practice with these because I don't want you going too out of control, but definitely play and see where you can go from there.